What's up, my community? If it's your first time, welcome. And if you're returning, welcome back. So it is February, Black History Month, and I don't know about you, but when I grew up learning about Black History Month, I learned about the big greats, Dr. Martin Luther King, Harriet Tubman, Rosa Parks, Muhammad Ali, the list goes on. But as I got older, it was inspiring to learn that there were other individuals in our Black community who attributed to our Black history, but didn't get the notoriety that was due them for their contribution to our Black history. And so I set out this Black History Month 2021 to reach out to some individuals that are doing amazing things in our Black community and leaving their footprint in our Black history. And that is what led me to doing this Black Business Highlight Blitz. And so for this episode of the Black Business Highlight Blitz, I would like to introduce some and present to others Mr. Kojo. And Kojo, you say the last name because I'm not going to screw it up. So
that's okay. It's Kojo Juantuah. It's okay. It's totally fine. Kojo Juantuah.
Yes. And so you guys, I have to tell y'all, so I met Kojo through my husband, and they've been really good friends for many years. And once I met him, he became a good friend, quickly became a good friend to me as well. And now he is Uncle Kojo. And when I did my very first Black Business Highlight, I actually did that. I highlighted the business Makola.com, and the owner of that business is Kojo. And I decided that I wanted to make sure that during this Black Business Highlight Blitz that I interviewed him so that I could put a face to the name of the amazing company that I was able to highlight in my very first Black Business Highlight Blitz. And so I just want to introduce to you guys Kojo. And Kojo, how about you tell us a little bit about yourself and about your business?
Well, thank you so much, Dia. The name is Kojo again, just like Dia said. I don't know, it's always hard talking about myself, right? But anyway, I live in New York. I actually worked for a while as a software developer. And I did Makola a while back right after school, put it on hold, and then now I'm picking back up again. And anybody who's been I'm from Ghana, right? Clearly my name gives me away. But anybody who's been to Ghana knows a big market called Makola. Now we have no affiliation at all with Makola in Ghana, but it's this idea of building a marketplace for African products, right? And so this place where you can come and find anything African you want. The initial idea and the long-term goal is to be a platform, because we still don't have, I think when I started before, we didn't have like even major e-commerce platforms like Jumia and whatnot back in Africa. I think the problem of e-commerce is being solved on the continent. And then of course in the US, like there's a plethora of e-commerce platforms. But when it comes to the diaspora, the African diaspora, I don't think that the needs are necessarily being met. And I think that it presents a very exciting opportunity where if we can create this platforms that makes it possible for people back home to be able to sell to those here, or even to introduce our African products, to the American consumer, and not just limit to African products, but go beyond that. That's what excites me about this business. So that's what Makola is in a nutshell.
That is awesome. You literally just in that little statement that you said have answered so many questions that I already had. So that's really amazing. Yes. So, and I appreciate you giving that background on, what started or where you came up, got the idea to even start Makola.com. So I want to sort of go back just a little minute. So you said that you are from Ghana. So how long have you actually been living in the United States?
So I have a funny story I tell people that when I moved to New York, right, I take a taxi and it's normally immigrants driving. And I always ask the drivers, how long have you been in the US? They're like, oh, I've only been here 15 years, 20 years. Like, wow, that's a really long time. And now I find myself saying the exact same thing. I've been here almost 15 years now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I've
That
been here
is
15 years now.
awesome.
So
And so you said that you started Makola.com when you were in college, and then you had to put it on hold. When you got started in college, what types of things did you have to do to actually even begin setting up this business and setting up this e-commerce enterprise?
yeah, so when I started, I was very, very green. And so I just didn't know much about e-commerce at all. I knew the possibility, right? But then I wasn't like a full programmer yet. And so just building it seemed like a really, really big deal. I actually partnered with a couple of friends to get started, but you have to learn everything from scratch, right? And sometimes, learning the theory is not the same as actually doing it. So we had to do everything. I mean, like pick the platform to use, learn the programming, figure out a bit of the marketing, figure out a bit of the business, the logistics. And so it's pretty much learn everything from scratch.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
It does. Because the thing is, one of the things that I want individuals to, to gain, from listening to this interview is that when you start a business, many times you start with what you have and what you know, and then you educate yourself in order to build it into something greater. And so from what I'm hearing from you, whenever you started, you had to build a network of team of friends and individuals who knew other things that maybe you didn't know. And then y'all took that information together and then built it like literally from the ground up, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's incredibly hard to know everything. And I mean, even if you knew everything, which is not possible, you just won't have the time to touch every facet of the business, right? And diversity really is important, because if it's just you alone, sometimes you have a tunnel vision and you cannot, account for every single possibility. So yes, I had to get a lot of help. On the tech side, on the business side, as much as help as I could. But yes, you're completely right. You start small, the work involved that also doesn't mean you should never start, right? You just have to start somewhere. I don't think anyone, knows everything they're doing. You just have to start somewhere, and then you pick up the rest as you go.
And you are so right. That is like a thread over the interviews that I've done. Everyone, it just seems to be a thread that you have to start somewhere,
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, I mean, it just all ties together. And you talked about creating that gap between, Africa and, get how the e-commerce and everything wasn't quite set up over there and how it's gotten better over time, and then connecting that gap to here selling those items here in America. So can you talk about some of the challenges that you faced while trying to, connect those two markets from Africa and over in Ghana, and then, connecting it here to get it sold in America?
Yeah, there are a lot of challenges. I mean, there are a lot of challenges. I mean, again, when you start, you're a little bit naive to begin with, right? I think the biggest challenge has been that you want to be a platform, right? And so the idea, and platforms always have this problem of a chicken and egg, right? And so if you're going to be a platform, you want people to come sell on your platform, but nobody's going to come if there aren't buyers, right? And buyers aren't going to come to the site if there aren't sellers, right? And so you need to figure out a way to solve this. And I mean, part of what excites me about this challenge is also what makes it very daunting, in that most of the people who right now do the very, very African sort of products are normally our aunties and uncles who came way before us, and most of them don't do much with technology at all. And so if, let us say, I was working with a different market, it would be outcome. I'm like, hey, you know, do you have a system that I can pull your data from? Do you have APIs that, you know, or like, do you have this sort of programmatic system that I can pull data from? That doesn't really happen in our community a lot, right? And again, that's what makes it super exciting, right? And so there's no way to coordinate it, right? And so those have been the challenges. So this time around, what I have done is to zoom in, focus, and be that I'm going to solve the initial problem of getting the products there, right? Put myself in the shoes of a seller to completely understand the challenges. And after that has been solved, right, then you can open it up, because then you have a lot more empathy for the people selling, you know, how do you get products into the country? Like, what are the logistics, you know? And for customers also, you can sort of, you can be able to work better with things like quality control and customer service, just all of that. So this time it's more like razor focus on doing an extremely good job as a seller, making sure that the customers are incredibly happy, and then open it up. Because again, the idea is to be able to create a market for these products that right now is much smaller than it could be.
And I hear you. So you were talking about the buyer and the seller, and then having empathy for the seller. And I'm interested to know. So whenever you are creating that relationship for, like you said, the aunties and the aunties and everything, who are going to be the sellers, how are you able to reach those individuals back home, back in Ghana, to know which individuals you are going to use as sellers on your website? If that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. And you know, I mean, the whole entrepreneur journey is solving problems, right? We haven't been able to solve that one particularly yet. Because I mean, so what I'm learning is that there are multiple steps to be able to get there, right? And so right now, it's just going to be very hard to convince people to come again, sell on the platform. Because most people fundamentally, the entrepreneurs care about sales, right? You know, so if you're going to get them sales, they'll come sell on a platform. So what we are solving for now is to get to the customers, right? Get people, get them really excited about these products, learn a lot more about the product. And again, it's been a very humbling experience. You learn so much, right, that you didn't know before. So things like the control, what it takes to list products and stuff. So after that has been solved, you know, and then we have people interested, I think that then we would be able to go from demand, right? And so if people want lots of shea butter and there's somebody who does it really, really well back home, you know, we would have them on board. And there are multiple, again, I keep saying challenges, right? So one of the big things is the logistics of it, right? Do you buy from Brooklyn and then someone ships from Cameroon directly to you, right? Or does it come here and then it's shipped out from here? So those are the kinds of problems that we're working on.
Have you been able to see, you know, like where there's been an impact in the community there in being able to create jobs and, you know, create more job stability in any way?
And honestly, that is what inspires me long term. That's what motivates me long term, right? This idea that you can be an engine for growth, and you know, you are in an enterprise that helps you yourself, right? But at the same time helps your community, right? And for me, it's not a zero-sum game, because in introducing new products, it's not taken away from the market. It's more additive, right? And so it's more like, oh, now we have more options, right? And so these products we didn't know about, we can now choose them if we want or not. So long term, that is what really, really drives me. And it's a very big thing for me. In the short term, you want to make sure that you stay alive, right?
Yeah,
you stay alive,
exactly. Yep.
So if I look at even just our numbers last year, the sales we did and the people we bought from, you can tell that I don't want to say support because support just seems like sort of a charity kind of thing. But we did a lot of business with lots of partners here, right?
Okay.
And a lot of them are people that are sending money back home. They are buying like containers from back home. They are supporting families back home and stuff. So definitely we had an impact. I think sometimes there's a bit of a tale of two cities, sort of, right, where you have very great organizations that are doing really well, and they support Africa. They do really, really good work, right? They do fantastic work. It's front and center, whatever they sell, like, part of the proceeds go back home, to help. So you're doing fantastic. And I think they need to be applauded, very, very much so. But there's also a parallel universe that normally doesn't come up a lot, right? Which would be, again, you walk into an African market. So if you walk into an African market, there isn't necessarily, I'm trying to support you. It's like, we are trying to do business, But in the business thriving, you see the ecosystem thriving and growing, right? And that's one of the business models that, again, really excites me, where it is not, I'm not necessarily asking you to come buy from me just because, you feel that there are starving kids in Africa, right? But more that I am providing you value, that you want amazing stuff for your hair, and I can provide really awesome, good quality stuff to you, and expedited shipping, just delight you, right? And from there, I think that if we're able to really execute well on that, the pie grows bigger. And as the pie grows bigger, everybody benefits, right? Which is parallel to that version of All Support Africa. This is also the same thing, but it's a bit of a different take on it. And it's really interesting because you get into this, like, you get into the supply chain, and again you realize that the stories are always complicated, right? The stories are always complicated, because, again, like I said, most of those doing it now, from my experience, again, I'm talking about the kind of experience you get when you go to an African market, right? So a lot of them have been our first generation, like aunties and uncles and stuff. So most of them are not really in tune with the systems here. So things like getting credit, or even assessing just the environment here, it's a bit challenging. So those who are able to do really well are those who know the system here. And so they are able to get credit, they're able to move very big volumes. So you realize that the supply chain is it's a lot more complicated than you think, right? And I love it, right? I love it so long as everything is growing. But I think that as we get into it, we can add value.
Listen, I certainly am not the most versed in all things e-commerce and, like you were talking about, supply chain. But what I do understand, though, is that where there is a need, like you said, and you are you're providing a service, you are problem solving, and you're helping to provide, bridge that gap between, one market to the other. And I think that, your passion for quality actually is part of what it makes you successful. Seeing that what your business, what Makola.com stands for, is creating a quality market, and that, and ultimately to allow it to grow to a point to where you can be able to reach back and help other people. I think it just speaks volumes, And have you actually reached like a milestone with Makola.com, or an event, or something that you have accomplished with your online store that has just made you so proud, and that is like, really giving you like the inspiration to just keep going with it?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. Again, we are just still at the baby steps. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
it's so hard. And if you're in the weeds, you're always seeing what's wrong, right? So it's so hard to celebrate any wins now. I mean, let me crack my brain and see. I guess one thing that would jump out, last year, there was a day that, I mean, it's a business, so you have your ups and downs, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was a day that we crossed sort of five figures in sales, and it's like sitting down and looking at the numbers, right? It's like, okay, you're doing something. Yeah, you're trending in the right direction. But yeah, ask me this maybe a year from now.
Yeah.
Ask me this a year from now. And one of the things is also like I consider it a startup. So you learn a lot and then you can pivot, right? And so one of the pivots that's coming up soon is that we are learning that, interestingly and ironically, it's actually very hard, at least for me, to define what is African. It blows my mind. You think it's going to
Wow.
be easy. Because, for example, we are selling a lot of products that are imported from Europe, right? And why is that the case? It's because back home, we consume a lot of stuff imported from Europe,
Mm-hmm.
and there are some things that are made here also, right? And so then, is it African? Is it not African, right? And there are even times where it's like with fabric, right? It's like an African fabric, but it's made somewhere else, right? Um, so it's all things that we are learning, to figure out, like, okay, can we apply this um can we apply what we are learning but in a bigger scale, so that we
Mm-hmm.
don't just limit ourselves just to sort of this niche African product, right? But
Mm-hmm.
it's like, okay, can the same thing be used to serve other markets as well, using the African community as a springboard?
Now that is very interesting. And well, and I'm gonna go back a little bit because I know you said it was kind of difficult for you to come think of something that was a milestone or something to highlight or to be proud of. But and I want you to correct me if this is wrong. But I know that when Derek and I talked and he was telling me about your business, he was telling me how when you were in school it was just a concept, and it took some time for you to actually have it created as an actual online store where you actually owned the URL and all of those types of things. So I think that just being able to get it to that point is a highlight. If
Oh,
so
well,
maybe you
thank
want
you.
to
Well, thank you. Well, thank you. Well, thank you. I mean, like I told you, if you're in the weeds, you always see what's wrong, right? And again, the stats for businesses and small businesses are not the best, right? So I'm always looking forward, like, what's next, what's next. But I'm glad we were able to start, and
Mm-hmm.
the thing that I want to do is to get to that place where Makola is not just Makola, right? Makola is something like, comparable to um, the Etsy's of the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Instacarts of the world, right? The Thrives, even the Amazons of the world. Because if you think
Mm-hmm.
Etsy, for example, right? Etsy, it's a platform. Etsy, and so you're not thinking the people behind it. That's what we want to do. We want to solve a problem to the point where it gets so massive, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not, sort of, it's just this African thing or this Kojo thing, but it's just this platform that you really love going there because you find stuff that you need.
Yeah.
So that's the goal.
That's awesome though, to become a platform where people can come and find almost anything that they're looking for. And like you said, it's amazing for it to be African centered, because I think that is definitely an area that we will always need, especially, here and for many, not even just for Black, African Americans, but many people, in America and around the world appreciate the natural resources and the things that come out of Africa. So to have that, center and that focus is great. But like you said, to be able to be a marketplace online online to get even beyond the magnitudes of your Amazons and everything, where you can have individuals who say, I have this to sell, can I put this on your website? And then while you've got that person who needs to sell this, there's somebody out there looking for that same thing, and they're like, hey, you can find it on Makola.com.
That's the goal. Mm-hmm. That's good. I think you touched on one other thing I almost forgot. One of the goals, it's like Africa we've been known to have so many natural rich resources and stuff. And I knew this growing up, right? Ghana is known for cocoa, Kwadwo the same. You get shea butter, you get oil, so many things, right? Mm-hmm. And I am very excited at the prospect of an Africa where it's not just the raw materials, mm-hmm. right? But it's not just cocoa, but it's chocolates, right? It's mm-hmm. like the finished products, and that really excites me, right? And I think people are doing an amazing job. People are doing really well. It's just the opportunity, right? And the opportunity mm-hmm. not from this sort of charity perspective, right? But the opportunity that let's get a level field to compete. You know? And if we get a level field to compete, you can go to the supermarket or you can go online and buy chocolate from Switzerland, right? But you could equally buy from chocolate from Kwadwo if you wanted, right? Mm-hmm. You could buy amazing shampoo, right? Made by a conglomerate in France, right? Mm-hmm. You could equally buy wonderful skincare from a place in Senegal, and that's the excitement about all of this, right? That's what excites me. And I think that the previous generation have done as much as they could, mm-hmm. and so now it's our generation, right? It's always funny because back in the day it would be like, oh, our leaders let us down, they let us down. And then increasingly I keep asking myself, who's the they now, right? And the they mm-hmm. happens to be us, right? And I think that, it's like the parable of people given different talents and whatnot. For those of us who have been privileged enough to come here and have an education and stuff, like if maybe I am back home, I look at the Zuckerbergs of the world, sort of and hold them on this pedestal, right? And the Bezoses of the world and the Musk of the world and hold them on this pedestal, right? But if you come through the system here, again, I'm speaking from my experience, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, these are our classmates. These aren't gods and goddesses dropped from the sky. These are our classmates, right? And so if they can create, and again, you think about just how fast the world has moved in the last 20, 30 years. Like most of the big companies now did not exist 30 years ago, mm-hmm. right? And so if people can solve those problems and the Nigerian community likes to say, do those people have 2 heads or 4 heads? They don't. They're just like us, right?
That's right.
Be it African community, be it African American community, be whatever community it is, right? And so I think there's just so much potential, right? And so mm-hmm. we take what we've been given, we take the opportunities that we have and the challenge that we have. And I think that we try and solve problems, and we try and solve big, audacious problems, and say that, if Zuckerberg can build Facebook and Bezos can build, Amazon, and on and on and on, nothing limits us.
That's right.
So we're going to do our best.
Absolutely. And like you said, it starts somewhere, and it takes a village, to be able to accomplish all these big things, because that's the goal, is to be able to be a platform where, again, like you said many times, is to be a platform where you offer what people are looking for, and that you create a platform where I have a product to sell, a quality product to sell that is Absolutely. Within, my business model. And here are, our clients, here's our customers, here's our customer base. You're looking for what we have. And now you can marry those two worlds together. I mean, it really is like that sweet spot,
I don't think I could have articulated any better than that. You totally could be a public relations person. I don't think I could have any better than that. Thank you so much, dear.
Yeah, absolutely. It really, I cannot say how much it is inspiring to me, because I've been in this country my entire life. Okay. I haven't lived anywhere else. And yet half of the resources that are available to us here, I never even thought of taking advantage of, or might not even knew was available to me. And to be able to see individuals like yourself who have come from a completely different culture, a completely different place, and then take advantage of this opportunity that's available to you and create a life for yourself, create a business for yourself, that even it being a small business or grounds roots are just starting, but you're still creating something that's beginning to thrive, beginning to breathe life, and ultimately become something so big that you have the ability to help other people. It really, really inspires me, because it says, Dia, why are you not, get up off your tail, girl?
No, you're doing amazing. You're doing amazing. I mean, you have your job, you have a family. Look, you are doing amazing. You are doing amazing. I mean, I don't think everyone can be an entrepreneur. It's a unique journey, you know.
It
I
is.
think everyone is inspired in their own ways, right? You know, we all have different motivations and stuff. But no, you're doing amazing. Look at you, you have your YouTube, so you're literally a YouTube entrepreneur, you're an influencer, right? And now I'm getting interviewed. You know how nervous I was for this interview? So yes, you were killing it.
When I hear you say, well, I was so nervous for this interview, I'm thinking, well, I'm nervous to interview people.
No, you are doing amazing. I mean, like, one of the things that's big now is content, you know, and storytelling, and it's so important now. It's so incredibly important, right? And I think that in you even going out there, starting, right, going on YouTube is one thing, right? And just the consistency, right? It's so incredibly important, you know, that the stories are told and stuff. And some of the big entrepreneurs now are just all putting like YouTube millionaires and stuff, right? So yeah, you're doing really well. You're killing it, dear.
Well, I appreciate it. I really do. And that it really is my goal to take individuals like yourself and allow your story to be told, because I really do think that individuals who run across the video can be inspired, in whoever they may be. And I want to give voice to our stories, especially, my goal is to give opportunity for our Black people's story, because we're not always asked. And when we take the time to stop and ask, we learn so much. And I'm so inspired by the stories that I'm hearing. And it is just my hope that other individuals are inspired as well. So I really, really, really want to thank you, Kojo, so much for taking time out of your day to be a part of this interview with me. And I just want to say to my community out there, I hope that you find some inspiration as well. Kojo, would you like to tell them where they can find you?
First and foremost, thank you. You made the interview way too easy for me. I just felt so comfortable. Thank you. Thank you for telling our stories. Thank you for giving us a voice, amplifying our voice and everything. Really appreciate it. Anyone looking for my stuff, you can go to www.makola.com and you find the information over there. If you need products or the stuff that we can add, just email us, support@makola.com. But makola.com. That's makola.com.
And I will have that down in the description box so that you can check out his link. And if there's anybody who is interested in selling on your website, is there anything particular that you look for your website?
Right now, like I said, we are looking at very high quality stuff because we are in the initial phases. And I think that's a bit of the challenge that we have. And so if, you think you have great products that will be a good synergy, definitely get in touch. The next wave would be things that we begin to promote, but for now, it's more like if you have like really good quality stuff at affordable pricing and the logistics works out fine, more than happy to consider it.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, I just want to say thank you again. And again, to my community out there, go check out Kojo at Makola.com. I'm sure you will see something in there that you may be interested in, or you may be interested in selling. And I hope that in sharing this story, you were inspired to start somewhere. If you have a desire to start a business, or maybe you want to become an actress or a journalist, whatever it may be, and you've been putting it off and you've been procrastinating because you feel like you don't have everything together, just start with what you have and start somewhere. And I want to encourage you, if you have not done so already, I want you to stop, take a moment, find a reason to laugh, and keep smiling. Until next time, and always be blessed.